So we want to take all that into consideration. I would say something around $1 million will be a great neighborhood, and something that probably has around 2.5 to 3% turnover. That would be a good area or criteria to use to pick a farm. The other criteria I would recommend. The traditional way of picking a 1,500 to 2,000 geographic farm, that's not enough homes for you to door knock to get the income you need to get right now, because we do have low inventory. So yes, right now, if you're going to start a geographic farm in 2023, 2024.
Hey everybody, Jose Luis Morales here. Welcome back to another episode of the Residual Real Estate Agent Show. Today we have the one and only Jim Sandoval with Park Regency Realty out in the San Fernando Valley. So Jim's one of the agents that I've admired for a really long time. We eventually became friends. And today Jim is going to be sharing with us what is a real estate farm, real estate farming step by step, and how to build a geographic farm. Welcome to the show, Jim. How are you?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Good. So for our viewers, Jim, that don't know who Jim Sandoval is, who is Jim Sandoval, and then how did you get involved in this wonderful world of real estate sales?
So I started my career back in 2006. So I've been doing it for about 17 years. When I started my career, just like most people, I interviewed a few offices, and I ended up at Park Regency Real Estate, which is based out of the San Fernando Valley area in California. I got into real estate because I got laid off from corporate. So back in 2006, my department closed down, and I had no other option than to either, live a few months off of my severance package or, go into real estate. I was actually one of the options that I took into consideration was selling the current home that I owned. And once I had a Park Regency agent that farmed my neighborhood where I lived in Winnetka, California, I saw how much money they were going to make. And I'm like, dude, are you seriously? Like you make 6% commission? He's like, that's how much we earn, 6% commission. I'm like, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my house, but I'm definitely interested in learning more about real estate. And he kind of took me under his wing. That was Stephen Green over at Park Regency Real Estate.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of forced into real estate because, I had no other income. And the office that I ended up with, Park Regency, as you know, they focus heavily in geographic farming.
Yeah. For our viewers, Jim, how many homes approximately, just to grab people's attention, how many homes approximately would you say you've sold in your career?
I mean, I've averaged between like 75 to 100 homes. So if I had to rough numbers, in 17 years of my career, I would say I've done over 1,500 homes
Love it,
sold.
man.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. Cool. So let's jump right into the topic. So for our viewers that don't know what a geographic farm is, how would you describe real estate farming?
So the traditional geographic farm will consist of an area or a neighborhood that you canvas, right? So it used to be back in the days, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 homes. And that one agent would come by in that neighborhood regularly and offer different promotions, like seasonal marketing pieces and stuff like that. That's like the traditional way of doing it. Obviously, my approach towards geographic farming, it's more aggressive. It's utilizing like the Mike Theory approach towards geographic farming with a strategy behind it, which I know you'll probably ask me about a little bit later. But yeah, it's just, it consists of 1,500 homes, 2,000 homes, and the agent just regularly comes by, canvassing the neighborhood, asking for business and keeping them up to date with what's happening with the sales in the neighborhood.
Got it. I love it. And then how do you determine what homes to target? Meaning if I live in a nice neighborhood, should I automatically target that nice neighborhood? If I have a neighborhood that I like or that I like to frequent, should I target that neighborhood? What's some of the data that we should be looking at when determining where to farm?
Great question. So I wish someone would have asked, or I wish I would have asked that question. Someone would have given me that information when I started, because we're entrepreneurs, right? So we want to go into an area that's going to generate the most amount of commission checks, right? Like the most amount of income, right? especially like, the valley, right? So if you're going to be door knocking like today, I was door knocking in 101 degree weather at like about, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning. So if I'm going to put that sort of amount of effort going door to door in that sort of heat, fully suited, I'm going to want to make sure that my compensation, my reward, my commission check is going to be sufficient enough to motivate me to stay out there even though it's over 100-degree weather. So I would not pick an area based off of where you live, or based off of where you grew up, or your parents might live, or where you went to school. I would pick an area based off of the turnover and the average sales price. If most listeners on your podcast are as talented as you are, I would try to pick a higher price point. Why? Because the reward will be larger. Like here in the valley, there could be neighborhoods where homes are going for like the low $700,000 right now. So commission check, for 3% would be $21,000. Some of us are worth more than that, so we might want to pick a higher neighborhood. But I'm not saying going into a, say, $2 million, $3 million neighborhood, because you and I know they're not going to have that high of a turnover, right? So we want to take all that into consideration. I would say something around $1 million will be a great neighborhood, and something that probably has around 2.5 to 3% turnover. That would be a good area or criteria to use to pick a farm. The other criteria I would recommend would probably be to go into an area where no one's dominating right now. If you want to go into an area where someone's dominating, Jose Luis, then you have to be aware and make that conscious decision that you're going to have to work that much harder and spend that much more money to take someone out like myself out of that area. And you will always have to share the business in that neighborhood, because if someone's dominating that area, it's going to be hard for them to walk away. So if there's going to be 30 listings in that pocket of, say, 600 homes, you're going to be sharing 15 with another dominating agent. Why not go into another area where there's 600 homes, but there's no more dominating, so you get all 30 of those listings coming to yourself and not have to share with any other dominating agent.
I love it. I love it. And that's really good advice, because obviously most people's inclination is just to jump in anywhere or jump into the neighborhood that they live in. But if there's already a dominant agent, you may want to do that. What is considered like a dominant agent in a farm? Like, meaning if you have 10% market share, is that like a dominant agent? 20% market share, 40? I know you mentioned that you have 41% in your farm, which is like really impressive. Any idea what would be something like, well, if somebody has 20%, you probably want to stay away from that. Obviously, if somebody has 41%, you don't want to go in there, and you don't want to go in there if their name is Jim Sandoval, probably,
Yeah, so I would say, again, most of these homes are like parcels that we have here in LA. There's about 600 homes in that area, and there's going to be 20 to 30 sales in that neighborhood. I would say if someone's in there, and that's COVID, like after COVID, right? If someone's doing, like, I would say between 10 and 20%, like, I would just be cautious and really strategize into going into that neighborhood. However, another good advice that I could share, don't pull the stats for now. Whenever you're going to pick an area moving forward, from whenever this podcast gets released moving forward, you have to pull the stats from like 2018, 2019, because those numbers back then were more real numbers. So pull up 10% or 20% in that area, and again, for the turnover in that area at that time, so you can make a decision off of the statistics in 2018, 2019, not in the statistics for 2023 or 2024. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, 100%.
Now, and bro, I get really excited speaking, so if you need me to slow down, just let me know, and I'll try to.
Well, what I like about this topic, Jim, is that like you're actually an expert in this area, because you have a geographic farm. You've got 41% market share. So people are getting advice from somebody who's actually doing it, versus I get people coming to me and they're like, how do I build a farm? I've never farmed. Like I farm virtually, but never like in actual neighborhood. What I wanted to ask you is, I know that you said that maybe like 1,500, 2,500 homes. Off camera, you mentioned to me that maybe in a time where there's low inventory, you may need to increase that just to get the amount of volume that you do. Can you elaborate a little bit on how many homes somebody should have in a geographic farm?
Thanks for clarifying, Jose Luis. So right now in this market, yes, there's fewer inventory, right? So um, the traditional way of picking a 1,500 to 2,000 geographic farm, that's not enough homes for you to door knock to get the income you need to get right now because we do have low inventory. So yes, right now, if you're going to start a geographic farm in 2023, 2024, I would say you would need to have a minimum of 3,500 to 5,000 homes for you personally to door knock. Obviously, later, you could ask me a question. Well, how can you expand? How can you leverage? And I can share some of those things with you. But if you're personally going to door knock, for you, it should be 35 to 5,000 homes, just to have enough inventory for you to actually be excited of the efforts that are being placed into geographic farming.
Got it. So it sounds like step one is do the homework, basically. Okay, how many homes am I going to select? Where's this farm? What's the price point? Is there a dominant player in that marketplace? That way I don't have really high competition and I don't have to share a big, like the book of business with anybody else.
Absolutely. And then have minimum standards, right? So again, like you're very talented to work into a farm area that's $700,000, right? You might want to go to an area that's $1 million or $900,000, right? So also have your minimum standards. Like, what are you willing to take? Are you going to go into an area and just go after single family homes, or do you want townhouses as well in that geographic farm? So for me, it's only single family homes, and my because that's where I started, right? So my average price point right now, it's like $850 to $900,000.
I love it. I love it. Good. Now, you mentioned door knocking a couple of times. So once you select the area, now it comes down to how do I stay in front of these people and how do I provide value? So do you only door knock or do you do other things to stay in front of the people in the community? And then also like how many times should you be staying in front of these people? Like what's the frequency like?
Great questions. Um, I'm not sure who the audience is listening to this podcast. So if you're a brand new agent, obviously you have to watch your overhead. So you really have to spend a lot of time in doing the physical labor of actually door knocking, right? So what I would door knock at that point would be like a just sold. I like door knocking just sold postcards um, because it's obvious that I'm looking for other listings. When you're door knocking just listed, you could open that up for buyers. I don't think we have enough time on this podcast to discuss that, but for me, my efforts is strictly on sellers. I'm making a conscious decision to leave money on the table because I'm not focusing so much on buyers because I want to be that employer that has all the listings in that area, right? So if you're a brand new agent, I would just get a just sold postcard from your company, or even if there's a just sold that's sold in that neighborhood from an outside agent that's not going to door knock, you could ask them permission to market their property as a just sold, and you could go door knocking. And obviously, you wouldn't say you door knocking. You would say, "Hi, my name is Jim Sandoval, and this listing over on 8013 Moorcroft Avenue just sold, but I'm not claiming I sold it." Right? So you can use that script. And just strict to door knocking. I would say if you're going to door knock as a newer agent, I would door knock Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then again in the evenings from like 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. And I would do that Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, I would door knock from about 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So that would be the 6-day work schedule for someone that's new. Now, I could go into, if it's more of a seasonal agent, someone that has built their career and has enough money in reserves. And if you have money in reserves and you want to invest more money other than the effort, I would do mailers. So every time you sell something, I will mail out like a just sold postcard with your bragging rights, like how many days on the market, how much over asking price, and if it was a record-setting sell in that pocket area, the The other thing that I would, in that mailer, I would send it a minimum of twice a month, right? So just sold postcard minimum of twice a month. I don't like door dropping. A lot of people call and complain because they consider that as littering. When picks up, and depending on what state you live in the United States, that could be a problem. So I wouldn't have suggested door drop. The other thing that I was going to tell you is So the other thing too, if you're a more of a seasonal agent, like what I did over COVID, I got my buyer's agent and I made them hybrid in the fact that they were working with my buyers during COVID, but we also needed to go after listings and get inventory for our buyers. So we started having our buyer's agent or our one buyer's agent a door knock. So now I have two people door knocking for me. So again, if you're a seasoned agent, right? But like a seasoned agent, you know what I mean by that, right? Like I don't mean an agent that's been doing it for 2 years, 3 years, and they think that they could now create a team. But if you're a seasoned agent, I would say at least 10, 15 years max or minimum. Hire somebody else adjacent to your original 3,500 homes farm or 5,000 farm area and expand to adjacent neighborhoods. So for me, I started with 2,200 homes back in 2006. And then my ISA, the first one that I got, we moved to the northwest, but we're adjacent. Like our neighbors are touching to each other. So then we expanded to 3,000 homes. So now we're about over 5,000, like over 5,200 homes. And then when my buyer's agent got cross-trained, then we had another 2,000 homes. So we're like a little bit over 7,000 homes. So now between all three of us, we're hitting over, I don't know, 75, like around 7,500 homes. However, that's more of a larger outreach, right? So that's what I would suggest for a seasonal agent, someone that's not started brand new. And then to answer your question, like how often, for my original farm, I come through there a minimum of 6 times a year. 6 times a year. And then for the ISA farms, for the buyer's agent's farm, I go there a minimum of 1 time a year. So at least they can see my face, right? And stay connected with that community so that I could give them more credibility when they go door knocking on my behalf. But again, with that approach, now I'm scaling my business. And I would try to pick adjacent neighborhoods because they all have their kids in the same school, right? They all might be in the same baseball league. They all might go to the same dance studio. Their cousin might live in that neighborhood. Their parents might live in the neighborhood. So it's better to pick adjacent neighborhoods than your ISA says, well, I live 30 minutes away from the office. I feel really comfortable starting it in my neighborhood where I live. No. Look at the stats and try to do adjacent neighborhoods when you try to scale with a seasonal agent's business.
Not only that, but it also leads to more frequency. They have mutual friends. They'll probably be talking about it like, oh, Jim's selling my property. So because it's so close in proximity, it leads to them seeing you more often, basically, on it. What I was going to ask you is why door knock? Is that the only way to get in front of them? Or I know you talked about mail, or let me ask it a different way. On top of door knock, on top of mailing, are we what does it look like now, in other words?
Yeah, so with calling, I'm not getting as many contacts on the phone, right? Because you got to scrub the numbers and you got to check for spam. You got to really clean that system for the auto calling. So I'm really not using the phones much other than to do lead follow-up or if I'm texting, right, because I can't get a hold of them. Or if I have to call them through an auto dialer with a different area code, just because they're not answering 818 numbers anymore because it might be an expired or canceled listing or for sale by owner in my geographic farm. So for me, I'm averaging about, say, 9, depending on where I go, in the mornings or in the evenings, I'm averaging about 9 to 15 contacts an hour in person, right? So there's a lot more strength and being face-to-face than being over the phone, right? So I'm door knocking like this, fully suited. with sneakers. And even because people are judging you, right? Even before I finish with my intro, like they already made a decision like, hey, am I going to cut this guy short? Or am I going to have a dialogue with him and talking to him or whatnot, right? That's in areas that it might not be my geographic farm where I'm just door knocking for a just sold. And nobody else is doing it too, Jose Luis, right? So like the market has shifted so much that anyone that started their real estate career after 2012 now has to realize and say, hey, well, if I want to really stay in this business, I actually have to go to work. Like I can't just bump into a listing, come across the listing, and it's going to sell with multiple offers. Like the market's not like that anymore. So if you want to build a career and a reputation for yourself, then you have to put in that effort. And what best way to do it than physically walking that community?
Got it. I love it. Now, what happens if somebody doesn't answer the door? Do you leave something at their door? Do you leave a card, anything to let them know that you were there? Do you go back and you make sure that you talk to that person? Like, what does that look like?
Great question. Um, so you know me, right? Like I do a lot of things that are non-traditional, right? Because of the Mike Ferry way, and also because of my old coach. So I knock on a door, uh, no one answers, right? And most homes have a ring device, right? Like a electronic smart device. So I'll press on that. I'll wait for about 30 seconds, and most people are not going to answer. So I'll just say something like this. Hi, my name is Jim Sandoval. I just sold another home on 8013 Moorcroft Avenue. And a key word, right? Another. I just sold another home on 8013 Moorcroft Avenue, and I'm actually working really hard to keep the values up in the neighborhood. And since I sold that property for 30 grand over asking price for a total sales price of $830,000, I was wondering, who do you know that would be interested in selling a home here in West Hills or outside of West Hills that I could possibly help? If you know of someone, please call me at area code 818-687-1512. So I'll leave that message right on this ring device. But see, I'm thinking outside of the box, taking that extra step to leave a professional video, right? With confidence, tonality, keywords to show that I'm the dominant agent in that neighborhood. And it's funny because like I know I ended up in the past like on Nextdoor app, like they're like, hey, look how desperate this agent is. Like he's leaving a recorded message on my ring device. And then like some people that I know in the area, they're like, hey, we got you, Jim. And like everybody started posting on it and saying, hey, you know what? Jim has been door knocking this neighborhood for the last 17 years. If someone came to my door at 100-degree weather and was leaving that sort of a track record on my ring device, I would immediately hire them. Why? Because I know they're going to work that much harder to get my listing sold, right? If they're working that hard to sell my listing, they're going to work that much harder to get it sold. So it's interesting how like our drunken monkey or like some very few people in the community could think like, hey, well, that's sort of desperate for you to leave that sort of a video. But I think it's powerful, especially if you're dressed professionally, for them to actually be able to reach out to you and think about you if they do have any referrals in that community or outside that community.
I love it, man. Yeah. And it's funny because I ended up on a Facebook group one time because we threw away some documents in a trash can and birds came out and took those documents out of the trash can and they thought I threw them on the ground. I'm like, how dumb would I be to basically like purposely drop EXP documents all over the ground? And then people came to my defense as well too. They're like, dude, like, do you really think he would do that? But it was funny how similar stuff happened to you. Now, it sounds like most of the times that you're door knocking, it's usually like a just sold door knock. Let's say I didn't have that track record of we just sold another property. And let's say I wanted to provide value. Do you ever do anything else outside of that? Like, hey, look, guys, we're informing everybody of this event that we're having. Or do you do any community events or anything like that?
So my way of doing it, again, it's a Mike Ferry way, right? And I know this is also Luis Morales podcast, not Mike Ferry podcast.
Nah.
However, it's you have to stick to the fundamentals, right? Like the way I was coached, like it's very basic stuff. For me, it works. The more basic an approach is, the easier. So I don't do the old school way of door knocking, where again it's seasonal stuff like pumpkin seeds, Halloween candy, Easter, back to school raffles, like different things like that. For me, it's my track record. So it's just like a good attorney, right? So like God forbid if you had to hire an attorney, like you want to go with somebody that you respect, that you know has a good track record to win that case, whatever is the unfortunate reason you're being sued, right? Same thing with me. Like they know, hey, look, if you want things done and you want a record-setting price with exceptional customer service, like you're gonna go to Jim Sandoval, right? Like that's my reputation. Like for me, it's not okay. Jim Sandoval is the guy that gets the community together. Like that's not my brand. That's not my philosophy. But they know that if they want the job done, like they call me for that, right? So I don't really do other events. If you didn't have a just sold from your company that you work for, if you didn't have a just sold from another outside broker that's not going to door knock it or cold call it, then what you could do is like door knock with the benefits of the market, and that script could sound something like, "Hey, you probably know there's a shortage of inventory right now. However, we have a lot of buyers on standby that are waiting for the next West Hills home to come on the market. So knowing that we're still selling homes almost as much as we did in 2022, when mortgage interest rates were about 3%, and now obviously they're around 6 to 7%. Who would you know that would be interested in selling a property like that? Well, no, I don't know of anyone. Well, Jose Luis, let's say that you did come across someone. Are you obligated to send those referrals to anyone else in the community? No, Jim, I like what you had to tell me today. This is the third time I've seen you in this neighborhood. I would like to build a relationship with you as well. Let me know, I'll try to help you. So again, just you could bring like a market stat that would help you get people motivated to take action and do something.
And then even I would say it also has to do with like different personality styles as well too, right? Because like you're like I'm the same way as you, where I don't have very many events for customers or anything like that, and sometimes I don't. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I wanted my reputation to be results driven, but there's other agents that are more social that are like, hey, look, like let's get together, let's have this pumpkin event. Could somebody farm in that aspect if they wanted to? Like, are there other agents using like social events to farm, basically?
That is correct. So some of the biggest social events that I've seen would be like where they do like something at a community park, right? So they could have, like a shredding event, right? Like confidential documents. They could have like a big garage sale in the community. They could have a pet and coffee day, like you buy coffee for the neighbors, different things like that. But again, you know my approach with Elise, right? So like I know that's not effective. So like I'm not gonna say that on this podcast that I would recommend for anybody to do that. If it works for you and you have a success way of doing those social events, go ahead and do them and continue to do them that way. But maybe perhaps you could add a little bit of my direct approach on how I'm getting business out of my geographic farming. And Mike Ferry, like my coaches, they don't call it geographic farming. They call it my center of influence. I just happen to be door knocking it instead of calling it, right? So my center of influence, right, my geographic farm, it's something I'm going after with the Mike Ferry approach. And now, because I've been doing it for so long and so direct, I've now trained my center of influence, my geographic farm, to call me with referrals. Like they know that they're not going to hand my information to anybody. They're not going to do that. We've discussed this many times in the past that they're going to ask the permission of that friend that wants to sell for them to give me their number so that I could then call them and offer them my services. Because you and I know that if people are handing out your information, even though you're the better agent with the best results, if you were the first contact information that was given out to them 3 months ago, but then they get two other agents at church that week or weekend they were ready to sell, they're not really going to think of you. They're going to think about those two other agents they met more recently.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so what about technology? Like, as you're door knocking them, are you collecting any emails, any phone numbers for them to add to a database? Are you using any email marketing? Is there any technology behind the farming strategy?
Yeah, so we used to collect a lot of emails, just to keep you up to date. Johnny next door asked me to keep him up to date with the market and how it's shifting right now. We never seen a market like this. What's your email address? So Lisa, I could go ahead and give you the same market updates as Johnny requested. Right, so you
Hmm.
collect their email address, and I was using viral marketing. I'm
Hmm.
not currently using them right now, but I was at one point. That would be like sort of the technology because you want to have like good relevant content and you want to have a platform to actually get in front of them as soon as possible. I door knock so frequently that I don't need that overhead right now. But I would suggest that sort of technology. In regards to inputting their information, I come through there and I've been there for so long that I know the story or the history behind every house, behind every door. So I know that their grandkids live in the East Coast. I know they come over here for the summer. I know that they moved from Arizona to here. So I know a lot of that information. But there's obviously walking farms. I think Mojo has a walking farm where you could actually look at who the owner is, when they bought the home, how many bedrooms they have. Type in your notes for that person there. But me personally, again, I don't use any of that information. I want to reach as many contacts as I can by asking great open-ended questions to get the leads. I don't want to spend too much time in updating notes and getting too distracted by technology. I just keep it very, very basic and very simple.
Very
The
basic.
other thing that I haven't said yet, my my way of door knocking as well, Jose Luis, I don't door knock adjacent streets. So somebody might start on the northwest corner of a geographic farm and start door knocking all the adjacent streets. So for me, again, I feel like the Mike Ferry way, I go where the activity is. So if I have my 2,200 original homes or the ISA's farms for 3,000, and I'm going to go door knock those 3,000 homes for that ISA, I'm going to pull the activity. Where are the actives, the current escrows, the pendings, and the recent close in the last 90 days. So my first 3 hours in the morning from 9 to 12, I'm going to door knock where there's no activity, right? So whatever streets have no actives, pendings, or close, I'm going to door knock those in the morning. In the evening, when I go from 4:30 to 7:30, I'm going to door knock where all the activity is, where all the actives, the pendings, and the recent close are. Why? Because most people are going to work a 9 to 5 job, and I'm going to have higher number of contacts with decision makers between the hours of say 5:30 to 7:30 than I would from like 9 to, or not from 9, maybe like from 10 to 12 o'clock, right? So
Hmm.
again, I door knock where the activity is. I always highlight what streets I door knock because, as you know, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth, so it will be kind of hard to keep track of what streets I covered in the neighborhood.
Got it. Do you ever avoid certain doors or people that maybe like say, "Hey, don't contact me ever again"? And then how do you like? It sounds like a lot of like if you're aware of what's going on in their life, do you just memorize all of this?
Yeah, just because again, it's repetition, right? Like you have like a certain, like it's my center of influence, right? So I've made so much contact in the last 17 years that again, I just memorize the situation, like what's happening with them. But of course, if they say, "Hey, I'm going to sell in 7 months," and it's a condition, not an objection, I have to document those notes very detailed, send a thank you email and a thank you postcard, and then follow up with those, right? But if it's just something to keep me up to date on what changed with their life circumstance, like I'm not gonna note that only if it's gonna be something that's gonna trigger a sell. And then do I avoid doors? I mean, I knock if the door says no soliciting, like I'm gonna knock on that door because again, I believe that I'm bringing value to that community, right? By not door knocking that door, I'm doing a disservice to that homeowner because they might end up with another agent that doesn't have the success rate or the level of customer service that I have in place to help them out. So, but now if I door knock it and they told me twice to F off, like just flat out like rude, I don't want to knock on their door. Like, why would I want to get into some sort of argument with somebody and get all that negative energy when I already have enough mental challenges. It's too hot. Uh, it's boring. Same doors again. Nobody's selling, right? Why would they want to sell? Their interest is low. Like, I don't want to add another negativity factor, so I'm going to skip those doors. If they're just nasty people, I'm going to skip them.
How often is it more that you're generating a lead right there on the spot, or just staying in front of them and then they reach out to you when they're ready?
So my coach used to say that most people that farm, they expect the orgasmic yes. Like, you're gonna knock on their door and be like, oh my God, like, I want to sell. But it doesn't happen that way, right? So there has to be, most of them are gonna be lead follow-up. So most of them for me, I want to say is a 1 or 2 point lead follow-up contact. And I want to say that's about like 90% of them. Of course, you might knock on the door and they're like, hey, Jim, what a coincidence. I was thinking about calling you this month. I'm glad you came by. While you're here, let me ask you these questions. Let me show you around. And then, I'll close for the appointment.
Got it. I love it. I love it. I know you talked about some of the challenges. I know that Park Regency is a big farming office as well, too. Like, I know that's one of the techniques that obviously works well for the company. What are some of the challenges that you see other agents have, or why do some agents succeed in farming and others don't?
I think with geographic farming, it's not like an expired or canceled listing, right? Like, they're not low hanging fruit. So you have to understand that you have to be patient with geographic farming. And how patient, I mean, for me, back in 2006, I started door knocking in like March of 2006, and I didn't get my first listing until September of 2006. So it took me 5 months to get my first listing. But it was brand new, right? The market was obviously starting to shift back then. So I think a lot of people just don't have they don't know how. Like, most people, because I have a lot of people, and anybody on your podcast, like, they're more than welcome to schedule this, like a shadowing session. So I have a lot of other agents from other offices in the LA area that will come and shadow me, and I'll say, hey, well, what are you looking at getting out of today? Like, what's the biggest challenge you're having? And they just need like the confidence and the know-how on having the right approach, because most people are not asking for the business. Like, they're there and they're just handing the information or giving the market update, but they're not asking for the business. So, like, for me, right? Hey, this is Jim Sandoval. I just want to stop by and let you know I just sold another house on 8013 Moorcroft Avenue. Um, I'm working really hard. I sold that property 30 grand over asking price for a total sales price of $830,000. So I was just curious to find out, who do you know in West Hills or outside of West Hills that would be interested in selling a home? Well, no, Jim, I don't know of anybody right now. No problem. Well, thank you for thinking about it. However, if you come across someone, LA County is expecting about 40% less sales this year than they did last year in 2022. So I could use all the help that I can from the community. So if you do come across somebody, would you mind giving me a call with their contact information? Right? But I'm very direct. And Jose Luis, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask, what about you? What has changed since the last time I spoke with you that will cause for you to want to sell your home? Well, Jim, like I told you, man, I'm gonna die in this house. I'm never gonna sell. I absolutely love my neighborhood. However, Jose Luis, you could still work through referrals, right? If you came across somebody that wanted to sell either in West Hills or outside of West Hills, am I still your go-to guy? Jim, you've been the guy, right? You've given us the popsicles over the summertime. My grandkids love you. Like, you're the guy, right? We're gonna give you all the referrals that we come across, and we'll call you with those names and numbers. So again, like, if you listen to that script, I'm asking for the business. Like, I'm not just there to door drop or give a market update. I'm asking, who do they know? What referral can you give me? Can you ask permission for that person or that friend that wants to sell? And what about you? When do you plan on selling?
Got it. Would you say that consistency is probably the most important thing in doing it? Like, meaning, like, most people give up too soon and don't do it long enough, maybe?
Yeah, it's just like anything, right? Jose Luis, you have to give it at least 90 days. But if doing it right and consistent, right? At least give it 90 days. And then at that point, sit down and see what you could change. Obviously, if there's listings that are coming up and you're not taking, like, why didn't you take them? Did you not door knock them? What was your script like? Um, the other thing too, when you're door knocking, like, look for signs, right? Like, do you see a pod, right? Like a moving pod? Do you see a U-Haul truck? Do you see painters? Do you see construction happening? Do you see a vacant home, newspapers stacked up or magazines on their porch? Like, look for little signs and then talk to the neighbors if nobody's home. Because the contractors, you could ask the contractor and say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I've been in the community for the last 17 years. I'm just curious. And you have to ask open-ended questions, right? I'm just curious. Once they're done with the work, are they doing it for their own enjoyment? Are they doing it because they're going to lease out the property, or because they're going to sell it? Obviously, you want to say selling at the end. Well, no, you know what? We don't know, but they usually come by. Okay, so when they come by, when are they home? Like, when are they coming home to check on the work? We usually come by on Saturday mornings. Okay, so then put that on your calendar. Come back on Saturday morning. The other thing, if it's vacant, and I know that something's happening with the property, but there's no contractors, I can see like the windows are open. There's no blinds. You can see there's work happening. Hey, John, what's happening with the property next door? I see there's construction work going on. The blinds are no longer up. It looks vacant. What happened to Mrs. Smith? Well, you know what? She moved closer to Riverside to her son's home, and she's at a facility now. So I think they're going to be selling. Oh, perfect. So what number do you have for John selling the property for his mother? Is it a 949 area code or is it an 818 area code? But again, asking open-ended questions. I'm not going to ask, well, do you have his phone number or can I have his phone number? Is what number do you have? Is it 818 or 949? Again, just asking open-ended questions to really maximize the opportunities when you're out there door knocking.
Got it. Have you ever had like one of the community ever be mad at you at times? Like, I know in my community where I live, I talked to a couple of the neighbors and they were like, well, this agent sells a lot of the homes here, but she sold this property below the asking price and we're not too happy with her. Despite of what was happening in the marketplace, even if it wasn't her fault, I know that sometimes it could lead to a little bit of a negative in that aspect. Has that ever happened to you at all?
Yeah, so it's gonna happen, right, with any listing. It doesn't matter if it's in a geographic farm. Your past client could be upset, right? However, with a past client, mainly it's all about setting the right expectations, right? So if you have somebody that might be upset and it's in your geographic farm, just know that you're always doing what's ethical and what's right by that community. Because if not, bad news, right, or poor performance is going to travel really, really quick. So always do what's right. But yeah, you're going to encounter those situations. Just say, hey, as you know, there's two sides to every story. The reason why this property might have sold for less is because of these reasons. It backed onto a main street. We're in LA. We're dealing with a lot of homeless people. Like, there was a homeless tent like in the alleyway behind it, and that affected the sales price. We try to get together as a community and try to offer them an incentive to move out, and whatever it might be, just show that you put in the effort. But there's been other cases where people have been upset at me for other reasons. But that's going to happen in everything. Like, there are going to be people that say, hey, like, I don't like his style. I don't like him. And that's okay because, we're different. We're all different. That's the beauty of it. There's enough business to go around for all the listeners on this podcast that I don't mind being an open book with you because there's just enough business to go around for everybody. But then, too, obviously, you have to do your very best to become a chameleon and don't speak the way I'm speaking to you right now if your audience or if your seller, it's an amiable, right? I have to really take a deep breath, right? Some sort of meditation in the car before I walk in. So I'm not speaking at 110 miles an hour because they're going to be like, okay, this guy's speaking way too fast for me. What is he trying to cheat me out of? Is he going to, do something? So again, be aware of who your audience is and become a chameleon on mirror and matching that personality style.
Basically, so treat people the way that they want to be treated versus the way that you want to be treated.
Correct.
I love it.
And again, cool. Become a chameleon, because most people that feel, hey, that guy that I'm interviewing, he thinks like me, he acts like me, he speaks like me, then you're going to be taking more listens in the geographic farm.
Here's something that there's an agent that farms in our neighborhood, and I've never gone after our neighborhood. I cover like basically the entire county and some of LA and some of Santa Barbara. But she started a Facebook group with the name of the community, and basically a lot of the people in the community are in that Facebook group, and it's a way for them to communicate with each other when stuff is going around, when there's events or whatever it may be. What I wanted to ask you is, where do you see the future of real estate farming? Do you see it happening more door to door? Do you see it transitioning ever to more online? Where do you see the future?
So for me, like for a successful future of geographic farming, what I would suggest is leveraging and scaling with using ISAs to go door to door knocking, right? Um, it's going to be a lot more profitable. Like and that's a great idea. Like that community event that they did for your neighborhood, that's a phenomenal idea. But trust me, if I'm door knocking that neighborhood and I'm face to face, I'm going to take that list.
You're winning 100%.
Right. So again, it's good to create those platforms, but at the same time, like just be more aggressive. So I would say that anybody that wants to scale their business in geographic farming, it would be adjacent neighborhoods to your original farm through the leveraging or the scaling of inside sales associate door knocking that area. I think it doesn't matter what happens with AI. It doesn't matter what happens with technology on how fancy and shiny that new biggest gadget might be. Like it always comes back to the fundamentals. Like in this sort of economy, like for me, I'm creating my own real estate economy within my geographic farm. And that's powerful. Like my own real estate economy. Why? Because I'm there so frequently. So they know, the homeowner knows how to pivot on saying, hey, well, I want to retire in 2024, but now that you're giving me this information, I can make an informed decision. Do I still want to wait and sell my home in 2024, or do I want to sell now and do a rent back that would pretty much keep me in my house until about January 1st if you do a 3-month rent back, and it takes us about like 2 to 4 weeks to actually get the home ready to go on the market. So again, it's just more of a profit-based decision. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not a realtor. I'm an entrepreneur, right? So the way I look at things is like, how can I make the biggest profit, right? With geographic farming too, it's you get a whole bunch of come listings, right? So you're not having to defend your commission like with a for sale by owner where they're trying to come at you at like 3.5-4% commission, where everybody here is like, hey, we have blind faith in you. Tell us what we have to do. Give us our punch list on what things to make. And, this is your fee. We'll pay your fee. We're more than happy to pay your fee. And yeah, we'll hire you. So there's hardly any pushback in your geographic farming, just like there will be hardly any pushback in your center of influence or in your past clients, because they know you. They is that repetitious, that frequency of being there so frequently.
I love it. Have you ever mailed more than twice a month?
I have. Like I might have created, again, these are the things that I wouldn't probably recommend, but things that I tried in the past where, hey, I'm short on listings for the third quarter and I'm going to create a raffle. Hey, whoever sends me the more referrals, either in the community or outside of the community, I'm going to have a raffle for an iPad. I'm going to have this sort of a raffle or a gift card or whatnot. So the more referrals I get from me, the more names I put into the hat. So again, we usually do like income-driven mailers. It wouldn't be like a seasonal stuff. So I have mails sometimes maybe, once a week because we're trying to push. But again, with technology, with Viro, we could also use that platform to tell them about the raffle and not have to spend the money on the postcards. Because for the mailers, it's really cheap. Obviously, at Park Regency, we have our free marketing department, so that's really easy.
I love it. And then here's the last question I had for you. In the pandemic, was the door knocking affected in any way? Because I know that the agents that were doing open houses in our area, those agents were like, man, like I can't really do open houses very much. Was that affected, or was it just like, hey, look, these are my people. These are the people I trust. Let me check in on them. How did that work out?
So your timing might be perfectly right, Jose Luis, because I don't know, with everything that's going on out there, we might be going into another lockdown or something. But to answer your question on what happened in the past, March, LA County got shut down, right? I had made a goal to take 2 months off because my son was due to be born on March 16th of 2020. So on May 16th, 2 months off, but that was scheduled. That wasn't because of COVID. 2 months off. I came back to work on March 17th of 2020, and I was door knocking. So I was going door to door, and whatever made people comfortable, I would respect that, right? So I have my door hangers, which I have now. I've always had them. So I would door drop that on the door, right? It's in a little baggie. It has my recent solds. It has a notepad and a return CMA card in there. And I drop it there. Now I door knock. It is, prime time of COVID. And now I'm at the sidewalk, right? I just want to be respectful, right? So they're talking to me through the screen door. I remain on the sidewalk, and I'm going through my full script and talking to them. They open the screen door, and they open their door, and they come out, and they greet me. They come down from the landing area on the porch. Then I walk towards them, and I'm speaking to them face to face. Because again, my job is to make people feel comfortable, right? It wouldn't make sense if someone was really concerned over COVID, and I approached and I was there standing on their porch. They'd be like, F off, get off my porch. Don't you know what we're going through a pandemic and we don't know what this virus is like? Or the other guy where I'm still standing on the sidewalk and he's approaching me because he feels that trust, he feels that friendship, and I'm this far back and not closing that gap between both of us. So during that time, I still door knocked and I mirror matched whatever they were saying. And not only COVID, because we're also going into another election year. In 2020, it wasn't just COVID. It was the election year, right? So people are saying, F this person, F that person. They're talking to me. I'm like, yeah, F that person. Regardless of what my opinion was, because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm there not to share my opinions or convince my opinions on what policies I might believe might be better for this or that. I'm there to bring value to the community, and the only value that I can bring to the community is as a salesperson is by representing them in the sale of that property. So if I give my opinion about COVID, if I give my opinion about politics, I'm nobody. I'm not in the medical field, and I'm not in the political field for me to tell them what that might be, even if it's different from what their beliefs are, right? So again, just become a chameleon and know how to read your audience and make sure that you mirror and match how they react to certain things. Again, we're talking about COVID, but there could be a lot of other things they're going to be reacting to that you have to become a chameleon on.
I love it. I love it, man. Cool. Any final words as it relates to real estate farming, Jim?
Again, like all of us, right? All of us are going through a really, really challenging time. And I'm not saying some people might be doing great financially, but we have to pivot hard, and we have to realize that we have to get back to work, right? So I'm not, and I know you're not creating this podcast to say, hey, everybody should start doing geographic farming. However, it should be another source of business because, again, in this economy, I'm doing much better than most agents, and my neighborhood is having a much higher turnover than most other neighborhoods in the LA area because I am doing the geographic farming. The other thing, it allows you to be the employer, meaning that you control the market by being a strong listing agent in that community, which will allow you, like you and I, to spend more time with our little ones, right? Because they're only going to be young for so long, right? If you're a buyer's agent working Saturdays and Sundays, running buyers around, and you have a young family like you and I do, that's going to take away. And for me, like, there's no price, like, right? Like my family and those memories that I could build with these young kids. I have two boys just like you. Like, there's no buyer that I'm going to work with, right? And again, with geographic farming, you have control of the inventory in the community, and then also the financial reward. It's going to be greater because you control the inventory and you control the selling office commission, right? So if you take a 6 or a 7% commission, it's up to you to see how much you're going to offer to the selling office, right? It's up to you how much you're going to offer to the cooperating broker. So again, I just think it's a much smarter way to make more money and allow yourself to spend more time doing the things that are most important to you. We all do real estate because it's important to us. It is a way of making income, earning an income. But obviously, there's a lot more important things in life than showing buyers houses on weekends and stuff like that. So, hope I was able to bring value to your audience, man. I hope you had fun as much as I did. I could have slowed down a little bit better, but I know this is recorded, so you can play back the podcast a few times and take some good nuggets from here.
No, I appreciate you. And then for our viewers out there, special thanks to Jimmy, because he was actually the first guy that I ever shadowed in real estate. And I saw him back in the day, like 2010 or 11, or maybe like 12 or 13. But when I saw him, he took me on a listing appointment. Just very grateful for that, because I came back to Ventura County and I implemented that same work ethic that you have out in the San Fernando Valley. What I got from this podcast is there's just no excuses, man. Like whether it's hot, whether it's sunny, whether there's a pandemic, you're not going to waver on the goals that you have. And you're not going to waver on helping people accomplish their real estate goals. So I appreciate that. So for our last question, Jimmy, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, email, what's the best way for them to do that? Find you on social?
Yeah.
What's the best way for them to do that?
So I don't check my Instagram. My Instagram is, I don't even know what it is, bro. I think it's like Sandoval _Jim. That's like social media. But the best way, if they're serious about their business and, anybody I could help out on your podcast, they could just email me. So that email is jsandoval@parkregency.com. That's jsandoval@parkregency.com. Also, for any referrals in the LA market area, keep me in mind for those. Any clients, if you're in the LA area, you don't want to work with them, I'm obviously open for those as well. But yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me, bro.
I love it. Good. So for our viewers out there, we had Jim Sandoval with Park Regency today. He explained to us what is a real estate farm, real estate farming step by step, and how to build a geographic farm. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you feel that this episode will be valuable to some friends, make sure to hit the share button. Once again, another episode of The Residual Real Estate Agent, Jim Sandoval, Park Regency Real Estate. Thank you, Jim, and thank you to our viewers as well, too.